Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Love is Greater Than Fear Spiritual Center. I am Reverend Derek. We're going to do something a little new today. And this morning, we are going to start with a pre-service meditation. We usually do these at the end of the meditation, or excuse me, at the end of the service, but I wanted to do it a little bit different today. So if you feel comfortable, I'm going to go ahead and guide you through. We're going to do about a 15-20 minute meditation this morning. And after that is over, we will do our Sunday morning talk. So if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes and start to relax your body. We're going to turn within. And I invite you to take 3 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. Feel that breath deep down in your belly. And after you've taken that 3rd deep breath, go ahead and let your breathing just return to normal. And there is no right or wrong way to do this meditation. If your mind is racing, if you've got a lot of thoughts happening, no worries. Just notice that you are thinking and return your attention back to your breathing. Begin to relax the muscles around your forehead, your scalp. Let that relaxation move down past your throat and over your shoulders. Feel that relaxation moving through your arms, down your chest, down your belly, through your legs. Just keeping our attention on our breathing. And allowing that sensation of relaxation to continue to flow through your hands and your fingers, down your knee, down your calves, out through your feet, your toes. Just allowing the body to relax. And if you have any disturbances around you, if you hear any distracting noises, pets, traffic, roommates, whatever it might be, allow those distractions to push you deeper into your meditation. Continuing to allow yourself to turn within. Keeping our attention on our breathing. allowing our thoughts to come and go, feeling the peace of God begin to blossom within us. Now, I invite you to bring your awareness down to your heart chakra. I sometimes will feel a sensation as I drop my attention from my eyes or my brain down to my heart. If it helps, place your hand on your heart. And imagine that each inhale and exhale is actually moving through our heart chakra. Inhale through the heart, exhale through the heart. And I'm going to be silent for a few minutes. And during this time, just continue imagining that every inhale and every exhale is moving through your heart space. And if you find your mind wandering, just remember to bring your attention, judgment-free, back to your breathing as you continue to imagine that you are inhaling and exhaling through your heart space. And if it helps, place your hand on your heart. And we're just continuing to pay attention to our breathing. Allowing any distractions to just push us deeper into our meditation. If you've just joined us, we're just doing a breathing exercise. Allowing our awareness to rest in our heart space or our heart chakra. As we imagine that we are inhaling and exhaling through our heart. Any worries or concerns you have about today, I invite you to just sit down for the moment. You can pick up your worries and concerns later if you choose. But for now, all is well. We have all we need. Relaxing into that oneness. That peace that passeth all understanding. Relaxing even deeper still. Knowing all is well in this moment. We're going to take just a few more minutes to meditate. So, still with your attention on your heart space, I invite you to call to mind and heart something or someone, some experience for which you are truly, truly grateful today. As you call that, whatever it might be, to your mind and to your heart, that thing you're grateful for, it will feel as if your heart is emanating with gratitude. Take a minute and just bask in the feeling of feeling grateful. And if you have several things to be grateful for, speak those silently to yourself. And as you feel comfortable, you can begin to bring your attention back to the room you're in, wherever you're seated. Slowly bringing your attention back, wiggling your toes, maybe moving around in your seat, taking a nice deep breath, and at your own pace, as you feel comfortable, begin to open your eyes. So, good morning. Welcome to the Love is Greater Than Fear Spiritual Center. I hope you enjoyed that meditation, whether you joined us for it live or you're watching the replay. Thank you for joining us in that. Wow, it's tricky leading a meditation and not falling too far into it. I'm trying to get my thoughts together. First thing I'm going to do is welcome you. Happy Sunday. I hope you have had a great start to your Sunday morning. I got to switch something up here on my screen real quick. Awesome. So, whoops, wrong one. There we go. This morning, we are continuing our series on miracles and movies. Last week, we explored the metaphysical nature of The Wizard of Oz. If you missed that, it's available on YouTube and on our Facebook channel. And so we're continuing this conversation this week with The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, the film, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I hope you've seen it. I hope you've read the book. I can't imagine anybody hasn't, especially I don't know, especially if you were. I know in the 80s and 90s, it was mandatory. They always read that book in schools, and we watched the animated films, and we also always just always was something that the kids always did, was explore the Chronicles of Narnia for several different reasons that we will touch on today. But before I jump ahead too far into the talk, which I was about to do, for those of you who are just watching for the first time, let me tell you a little bit about the Love is Greater Than Fear Spiritual Center. We are a virtual spiritual center with weekly spiritual talks and meditations based on universal spiritual principles. I happen to be a student of a book called A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles teaches universal spiritual principles like the power of love and forgiveness, and cultivating inner peace, things that are found in all religions and all spiritual paths. Our vision is to be a spiritual place for personal and planetary awakening. And everyone is welcome. I remember when I first started looking for a church to attend when I was in my early 20s, the biggest thing I was looking for was a church that would accept me for my sexual orientation, accept me for my political beliefs, and just accept me for who I was and who I was becoming. And it's such a weird thing to find churches and centers that don't embrace you for who you are and where you're at. Our community is totally different. Our community is for all of God's children. It doesn't matter your gender, your race, your sexual orientation, your nationality, religious background, political affiliation. None of those seeming differences matter. We believe that all of God's children deserve a life of peace, love, freedom, and creative expression. We believe in the dismantling of the thought systems of fear that would hinder any person's purpose on earth. And we believe in love and equality for all. We take that a step further and we reject the idea that there's only one path to God. We celebrate every life. We believe we are stronger together. We believe prayer and meditation can transform any life. And we believe that love is greater than fear. Join me this morning for our spiritual declaration. I surrender this day to God that he may lead me to deeper peace, greater love, and fuller life expression. I surrender all my fears and desires to him. I ask that he show me the path from fear to love. Amen. So, today, we are talking about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. For anyone just joining us, we're continuing our series on miracles and movies. Last week, we explored The Wizard of Oz, and if you've been watching a lot of our services, I always am mentioning fairy tales and fables and about how powerful they are. And I say this all the time, but a story like The Wizard of Oz, or a story like Sleeping Beauty, or even The Lion King, any of those films, like you can look at them and they're just these like little kids' stories. And if that's how you look at them, that's all they are. But the great thing about these fairy tales, these fables, and all of that is that they're laced with metaphysical meaning and symbolism. And it's almost as if it's been simplified so that a child can understand the basic ideas of love, peace, and forgiveness. And we think that sometimes we simplify these stories to help children better understand them. And yet, how do I say this? It's as if we think that, the children will understand these simple stories, and yet we miss the point as adults so often. These very simple and powerful stories in books and films like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So the reason I wanted to talk about this one today is I remember when I was a kid, I would have been in probably second grade. We had just read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the book by C.S. Lewis. If you're not familiar with C.S. Lewis, he wrote all of these books. He is a Christian author as well. He has a great book called Mere Christianity. If you're interested in checking him out after this talk, definitely do so. He's got some great material out there. And I remember it was second grade. We had just finished reading that book. And we watched the animated film. And then we watched the BBC had a series on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe back. I mean, this would have been like 1992. And I just remember feeling so excited, just like the excitement of the idea that there is this other world, which is Narnia. And this is just like in The Wizard of Oz, right? In The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy goes to Oz. More and more, as I look at these fairy tales and these stories, there's always two worlds, always two worlds. And I think that really speaks to our memory of God and our memory of heaven, that deep down, people remember that there is earth and there is heaven. And that can't help but come through as people are writing stories. These are archetypes, these are mental images and ideas that, as a species, we've carried with us since the beginning of time. Now, I loved this book, and I loved the cartoon when I was a kid. And then in 2005, they released the live action film, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was just incredible. If you haven't seen it, please, it's on Disney Plus. You can stream all three of the films. Today, we're just going to be talking about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe film. I haven't read the book in a long time, so I don't remember how different it might be. But for anyone who is not familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, let's talk about what it's about. So the story begins in England. It's in the midst of World War II and the famous Blitz. A mother takes her 4 children, the Pevensies, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. And because of World War II and what was happening in England at the time, she ships them off to go stay with a professor way out in his big mansion in the middle of the country. Total bummer for these children. Life is changing fast. Life is scary. This is World War II, and they're being sent away, and they're not going to be around their mother and their father anymore. So they're shipped off to this professor. They get there. It's strange. They're only told to be quiet, don't disturb the professor. It's a scary situation. And you get to know the kids and like the heart of who they are there in that just first 5, 10, 15 minutes of the movie. You've got Peter, who's the older brother. He's kind of like the wise one, trying to be responsible. You got Susan. Susan's the oldest daughter. She's a very practical, very logical in her thinking. She very much lacks imagination. You've got Edmund. Edmund's kind of the troublemaker. You can tell that Edmund is the one who is a little bit jealous of his older brother. Edmund is the one who feels competitive and who seems like he might do shady stuff. And then you've got Lucy. Lucy's really sweet. She is the youngest of the 4, and she is just very innocent, very kind, and very loving, and you see that throughout the entire film. So the Pevensies begin playing a game of hide and seek, and as they're playing hide and seek, trying to forget about World War II and what's happening in their lives, they go running through the mansion, and Lucy, the youngest one, goes into a room that's empty, and she hears her siblings coming as they're playing hide and seek, and she's in this big empty room, and she sees this giant wardrobe, and she goes to sneak into this wardrobe. She opens it up, she steps inside, and I just remember the first time I saw this movie just like having goosebumps, because it just like it's straight up nostalgia. If you were a child in the 90s, or even before that, the book I think came out in the 50s. She climbs into the wardrobe, and as she's inching backwards past all the fur coats, she keeps inching backwards. Next thing she knows, she's standing in snow in the middle of a forest. She has left the wardrobe, and she is now in this new place that we know as Narnia. You see the lamp post there, and this lamp post is always the guiding thing that redirects them back to the wardrobe. As she's standing out in the middle of this snow, cold, she notices a little fawn, a half man, half fawn creature, played by James McAvoy. And she sees him and he sees her, and they both jump and they're scared. And she's just like kind of taken back. And she's like, "Why are you afraid of me?" Looking at this half man, half fawn creature. And he introduces himself as Mr. Tunman, and as he begins to tell her where she is and what's going on, you learn that this magical place of Narnia used to be spring and summer all the time when it was ruled by Aslan. Aslan is this giant, is this lion who represents like this Christ figure within the film. And he tells Lucy that ever since the White Witch took over for 100 years, it's been constantly cold and there's no Christmas. So it's always cold and there is no Christmas. Now, C.S. Lewis is a bit of a genius because he takes these like Christian ideas and principles, simplifies them to a way that a child can understand. So you tell a child that, well, first, if you think about like what is the biggest, strongest animal out there, of course, lion is one of the thoughts that animals that probably come to mind. And so lion is representing Christ, one of the strongest figures, or the strongest figure of the Bible. And so as he's talking to Lucy and saying that it's always cold and there's no Christmas, she's like, no Christmas, that means there's no presents. And this is really interesting because you can look at it on one hand and be like, okay, so there's no Christmas and there's no presents. But the deeper meaning here in this story is that while the White Witch rules, and remember that just like in our previous conversations, the White Witch always represents the ego, that when the ego rules, things are cold, lifeless, and there's no Christmas, meaning there is no love. That as long as our ego rules our world, rules Narnia, rules our version of heaven, our heart, then we suffer. And so there's just these variety of ways that these Christian principles and ideas and metaphysical principles and ideas are just really simplified so that a child can understand them. And so she learns this about the White Witch. And then Mr. Tunman goes on to share with her this prophecy that one day the sons of Adam and the daughters of Eve would come and rescue all of them. Now, this fawn happens to also be a little bit of our Judas character. Each character in the film represents someone from the Bible, and he happens to represent in this moment a Judas character because he invites Lucy back to his house for tea, puts something in her tea so that she falls asleep, so that he can, and then he alerts the White Witch that a daughter of Eve is here. While this is happening, Aslan, the lion, the Christ figure, kind of comes at him through a fire in his house. And the fawn starts thinking, this is a terrible idea. What am I doing? He starts to feel guilty. And then he helps Lucy escape. Lucy goes back through the wardrobe. She tells her brothers and her sister what had just happened in the wardrobe. They think that she is absolutely crazy. She brings them back to the wardrobe so she can show them Narnia, and there is no Narnia. It is just a wardrobe. Now, this is, I think, one of the most important themes throughout the film is the Bible quote. What is the Bible quote? I have it for you. Hold on. And said, verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children and enter the kingdom of heaven. So the Bible reminds us that it is when we carry ourselves in our minds and in our hearts as innocent as a child, then we can see clearly. The world seems so much more magical when you're a kid because you don't have your judgments and your criticism and your experiences already. So you can kind of have a more magical existence, but also what's really important is that children know that they don't know, which means that they are teachable. And so it's really beautiful watching these children, have these imaginative minds and go through this movie, learning and being able to be taught by Aslan, the Christ figure, and all of their friends. So Lucy, being the most innocent and childlike, she was able to see Narnia, but when she brings her siblings to the wardrobe, it's gone. Later that night, she sneaks in back through the wardrobe, this time goes back to Narnia to go meet Mr. Tumnus. Followed behind her is her brother Edmund. Now, Lucy wants to go find her fawn friend, Edmund doesn't really know what he wants to do. He's not crazy about his siblings. He's kind of got an attitude. He's got kind of like a questionable nature. He goes through the wardrobe. First person he encounters is the White Witch. The White Witch recognizes him as a son of Adam, knows that he is a threat to her. There's a prophecy that says when these four come, they will become the kings and queens of Narnia. So this is a huge threat to her. Now, what's really interesting about this is she invites him onto her chariot, where she gives him Turkish delights. Turkish delights in this movie represent um, the betrayal of Jesus. When Judas betrayed Jesus for some silver, here we have Edmund betraying his siblings for some Turkish delights. So he betrays them, rides off, and gets to know the White Witch before ultimately they go back through the wardrobe, tell their siblings, other siblings, what happened, and they still don't believe Lucy, and Edmund pretends it never happened. So this is a really frustrating thing for little Lucy because she knows that Narnia is real. She knows that this is a real place. It's kind of like if you ever have a spiritual experience or a dream and you're trying to tell a friend about it, but maybe they're not a believer and maybe they're not buying into it. And it's just this frustration because you know it's true. Now, short time later, they're all hiding from the professor after they've thrown a baseball through a window, and they go to hide in the wardrobe. And while in the wardrobe, they start inching backwards through all the fur coats, and ta-da, all four of them are in Narnia. Now, the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe, metaphysically, what this movie could be called is the Christ, the ego, and the path of least resistance. The Aslan, the lion, is definitely represents the Christ figure. The witch definitely represents the ego, and the wardrobe, just like from my own watching it myself lately, to me, the wardrobe is just the path of least resistance. It's just wherever you are, whatever's happening, it's that portal to that other world. In the second book, I think that they're not transported through a wardrobe. It's through like a bus station. So the wardrobe could be anything in your life, but it's any place or any opportunity where you don't have a lot of resistance. So maybe you can go into a magical land. Maybe you can access your own heaven. So here all four of them are in Narnia. And, it's just, if you haven't watched it, watch it. Just such a great film. So they know there's this prophecy that, these children will become the kings and queens and that the witch is very threatened by this. Now, ultimately, I got to skip through this story. Edmund goes off to be with the White Witch, and starts betraying his siblings, telling her where they are and what they're doing. The other three are just like battling with like, is this real? Is this happening? What do we do? Susan, the practical one, is like, we should just go home. Peter is kind of like the noble one, and he's like, I just love him because he's just keeps going with the flow. He's like Lucy in that sense that he just goes with the flow. He's like, the call of adventure has come, and I'm saying yes. So the kids meet Santa Claus. He gifts them some swords, a bow and arrow, a magical potion to bring people back, to heal people that have died or been inflicted by a wound. And then they continue their journey, and they meet Aslan, the lion, who is just a proud, noble beast. You get a strong, Christ-like sensation from him and everything he says. He finds out that Edmund has betrayed them, and so he sends a team of his people to go rescue Edmund. And it's interesting. There's this whole betrayal that happens, and we never talk about it because we see a scene of Aslan talking to Edmund before he's reunited with his siblings. And then he walks Edmund over to his siblings, and he looks up at the other three and says, there is no need to talk about what happened. No need to talk about what happened. Now, I wish I knew what Aslan said to Edmund. Maybe it's in the books. But I remember as I was watching this weekend, I was just like felt so touched by it, because that's what forgiveness is. So often, we'll say we forgave somebody, but we didn't really forgive them, right? We'll bring it up later, right? You'll forgive your spouse or your partner for something, and the next thing you know, later on, you're bringing it up. Well, remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? That's not forgiveness. And so it's just so beautiful in this moment when he says that, we're not going to talk about that anymore. We will not discuss the betrayal. It is over, and we're moving forward. And that kind of like brings some freedom to the character of Edmund. From there, Edmund can really grow, because he's not feeling like he needs to, his siblings aren't trying to punish him. They didn't have to have this conversation. They just get to move forward as siblings, knowing, hey, he made a mistake, but we forgive him for this. And so forgiveness is a huge part of this story, because the same thing happened with Mr. Hunman, that he betrayed Lucy in the beginning. Aslan spoke to him, and then he started to right his wrongs. So now here's the thing. The White Witch shows up. The White Witch says, it was decreed from the beginning of time that those who have committed a betrayal, those who have sinned, are mine. So the White Witch is not just the ego, but she is also the character of Satan in this story. And this is a really important part of the story, because you remember in the Bible, when Moses comes along, he is teaching the law of cause and effect, an eye for an eye, right? And you know this, that you've probably went through your life in times where you lied to someone, you cheated on something, you did something. And after doing that sin, that mistake, there was an effect, right? So there's cause and there's effect. He betrayed his siblings and he betrayed the people of Narnia. So he now belongs to the ego, he belongs to the witch. And this is just a law in Narnia. Aslan and the White Witch have a private conversation. We're left in the dark about what was said in this tent. And then she releases her hold over Edmund and says, yeah, I've made another deal with him. You're free to go, Edmund. You're not mine. My favorite scene is the White Witch then turns to him and to Aslan and says, how do I know that you will uphold your end of the bargain? And Aslan just very ferociously says to her, do not recite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written. Just my favorite part of the movie. So later on, we find out, we see Aslan leave. Now, as I mentioned, each one of these characters represents someone. Aslan is the Christ figure. Peter represents Saint Peter. Edmund is another Judas character. Susan and Lucy represent the Marys that walked along with Jesus and was with Jesus after his crucifixion. So the girls see Aslan leave and they follow him and they have a conversation, and he says, please don't come with me any further than this. They watch him walk onto this giant table where we find that he is giving himself over to the White Witch in order that Edmund could be free. So this is the sacrifice of Jesus. Now, I've never really understood the Christian version of Jesus and the whole concept of Jesus sacrificing himself for us and dying for our sins. I've always found that part of the story very confusing. But in this movie, they simplify it. And the idea here is that when we do ego things, when we act out of hatred, fear, competition, when we do things like that, we compromise we have effects, right? The law of cause and effect. We act like that, there will later be an effect. But the idea here is that Jesus steps in and takes the blunt of that for us and allows us to carry on through our mission. What is this? There's a quote I'm looking for in my mind. I forgot to write it down. But basically the idea is there is the law of cause and effect, but through a moment of grace, we can be healed of all of our past karma. That's one of the things that Buddha taught as well. So The White Witch goes on to shave the lion, torture the lion, humiliate him, all the things that the ego does, right? That's what the ego in our minds does. The voice of fear shames us, makes us feel guilty, humiliates us at times. And she kills Aslan, and the two Marys rush to his side to hold him and love him. And it's really a sad, touching moment. I really, huge shout out to Disney for doing this movie. And I feel like it's a child's movie, but there's still this level of maturity and also action and violence that's very necessary for the type of story they're attempting to tell. Um, so that happens, and then the stone cracks, and we see in the sunlight behind us that Aslan is resurrected. He takes the girls and they charge into battle where they defeat the White Witch and restore Narnia back to its natural state of spring and summer and growth. Now, one thing that's really interesting about the White Witch that I must point out, the witch, which always represents the ego, can never kill anyone. Think about the Wicked Witch of the West. What did she try to do to Dorothy? She tried to put her to sleep with poppies. And Sleeping Beauty, what does Maleficent do to Sleeping Beauty? She can't kill her, puts her to sleep. Same thing with the evil queen in Snow White. Can't kill her, puts her to sleep. And this is very symbolic of what our ego does. Our ego can't kill us. There's only so much it can do to us. What it can do, though, is our egos can put us asleep to the truth of our true nature. It can make someone who is love, who is peace, who is joy, who is perfection, who is confident, who is powerful, forget that. Just fall asleep and forget and start dreaming and start having nightmares and imagining that they're this other person that they're not. You know, the only way you can tame a lion is to make it forget who it is. And that's true for us. And that's what the witch archetype is always doing in these types of fairy tales, fables, and movies, trying to make us forget who we are. So the story ends with the prophecy being fulfilled. These four children become the kings and queens of Narnia. Narnia has been restored to a heaven, a place of peace, a place of love, a piece of joy that's really symbolized by it internally being spring, growth. And then when they're several decades later, they're riding their horses through the forest. They see that lamppost from the beginning of the film that once guided them into Narnia. They see that lamppost and they begin to remember something's there. And now at the age is like in their 30s, they start walking through. They enter the backside of the wardrobe and fall out through the front of the wardrobe, and they are children again. And literally no time has passed, even though they've been in Narnia for decades. So much more that I want to say about this film, but I think that just like The Wizard of Oz, there's like some things here really for us to learn from. I think number one, forgiveness is so important. Who in your life right now are you judging? Are you criticizing? Is it yourself? Is it a friend? Is it a family member? Someone at work? Someone in the White House? Who are you holding in judgment and criticism? And can you just forgive them? Can you just decide, just let it go? You know, there's a Martin Luther King quote where he says, God said I have to love my brother. He didn't say I have to like him. Marianne Williamson takes that a step further and says, I forgive people. That doesn't mean I'm going to have lunch with them. So we can have our boundaries with one another and still forgive them. I think sometimes when we talk about forgiveness, the ego has this way of being like, oh, but if you forgive people, that means they're just going to walk all over you. But that's not the case. When you forgive people, you are loosening the chains around yourself and you're loosening chains from around them. Holding a judgment and a criticism of another person, of course, in Miracles says, is like holding a sword over your own head and thinking that by attacking someone else, it's going to hurt them, but only the sword will fall on you. Forgiveness is a huge thing here. And it's not just a I forgive you, it's a I forgive you and I will never speak of this again. I think that's such a powerful moment in the story. But the other powerful theme throughout the story for me is how these children, because of being innocent and imaginative, can see this whole other world that is there. What you find later on in the movies and the books is that at a certain age, um, the children can no longer return to Narnia. In fact, there's the professor in the film. Uh, he seems to have been to Narnia before because he really believes it's a real place, but he cannot go back because he's too old. And I think the lesson there is that, as we get older, we think we know things, right? Like I said earlier, the reason that's so great about children is that they're teachable because they know they don't know. They know they don't know, so they're teachable. And so it's really important to us, like children wake up every morning excited and happy about the day ahead of them because they don't know what's going to happen. You and I have a tendency to wake up depressed in the morning because we know exactly what's going to happen. So, what I invite you to do this next week is act more like a child, right? I'm not saying don't go to work and, don't do stupid stuff, but develop a childlike mindset. Be quick to forgive, be quick to love, be quick to be optimistic. And I bet if you can cultivate that innocent perception of the world, trusting in people, loving in one another, you will begin to see glimpses of Narnia, AKA glimpses of heaven all around you. And when we break through that barrier, when we're able to shift our perception from fear to love, what do? We create miracles. If a miracle is not happening in your life, then something is wrong, and a shift in perception from fear to love is necessary. So, what we're going to do now, we're going to go into our morning prayer. So, let's just take an open mind and an open heart as we turn within and close our eyes. So, dear God, we invite you into our minds and hearts this morning. We ask that that deep magic that is yours enter so deeply into our being. We ask that you help us to see beyond the veil of illusion and fear. Help us see beyond what we think is true and what we think we know. Help us see beyond the realm of the earth, beyond the realm of ego and fear, into your light, dear God, into the truth of who we are, to the truth of who other people are. And that truth is that we are all love and we are here to love. Everything else is an illusion. That is all we are here to do. We ask you to help us as we go through our lives this next week to lean into our soul, to lean into that part of us that is never hurt, that part of us that has never shed a tear, that part of us that has never known betrayal, that part of us that has never sinned or erred, that part of us that has always been whole, perfect, and complete. Dear God, we know we have this tendency to fall asleep to that and to dream of other things. Help us as we go through our week to remember every day the love, the truth, and the beauty that we are. Help us to forgive. Help us to be kind. Help us to be courageous in our lives. Help us to take divine right action. Help us to think clearly. to love totally, and to experience miracles all around us now. Let us breathe that in. And I invite those of you listening to take a moment and just say your own prayer. Whatever it is that you need God to do for you this week, go ahead and speak that out loud or inwardly. And so, dear God, we place this prayer with trust and faith in your hands. And release it to you. Not only knowing that all is in your hands ultimately, but actively giving over to you our lives and our week. And we say together, Amen. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this talk about the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, if you do need a little extra spiritual guidance this week, we've got some resources I want to share with you. So we've got our prayer ministry. You can head over to loveisgreaterthanfear.org, submit a prayer. We will pray for you every day for 30 days. We've also got our Accessing Inner Wisdom counseling sessions. So I also added some life coaching sessions onto the website. So just head over to loveisgreaterthanfear.org, get more information about that. Be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, like, comment, share, do all that fun social media stuff, keeping in mind there might be somebody on your news feed today that needs to hear this talk. This talk could be a miracle for them. So be sure to share this stuff, guys. And then, whoops, I jumped ahead. I'm missing a slide. We are doing on Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock. We have a Course in Miracles study group. That is also on the website, loveisgreaterthanfear.org. Now, before we wrap up, join me in saying out loud together this spiritual declaration. I surrender this day to God, that he may lead me to deeper peace, greater love, and fuller life expression. I surrender all my fears and desires to him. I ask that he show me the path from fear to love. Amen. So we will be back next Sunday to conclude our Miracles and Movies series. And we're going to be talking about the spiritual message of the film Avatar. So if you haven't already seen it, and even if you have already seen it, watch it this week. We're going to be talking about it next Sunday at 10 a.m. And remember, guys, next Sunday, you can join the pre-service meditation 20 minutes before the service starts. We're doing the meditations before the service now, just a great little thing that we're going to try out. So be sure to join us for that pre-service meditation as well. If you feel served by today's message, if this uplifted you, if this inspired you, if this helped you inwardly deal with some challenges that you are facing today and you want to support our center, you can make a donation on PayPal to @LoveIsGreater Center. That's @LoveIsGreater Center. Now, your donations go a long way. They help us pay for this ministry, the website costs, the software costs, the email costs, like all that stuff helps us pay for that. But also right now we are raising money to help to rent a venue so we can do our first live event, hopefully around Christmas. So your donations to us go a long way. So again, if you want to make a donation, you can go over to PayPal and donate to @LoveIsGreater Center. You guys have been awesome. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.